I'm getting a lot of pushback on this video, and I totally understand because I used to be the incessant texter. I was anxiously attached for a long time, and I also get that when we feel called out, it is a natural reaction to get defensive. We justify our behavior. It's not abuse because I'm just trying to be heard, or it's my anxious attachment or my neurodivergent. About 10 years ago, I would have said the same thing. I would have justified that behavior too. But the type of texting I described, especially if it is a pattern of behavior, it falls under digital abuse and coercive control. Coercive control is any pattern of oppressive or dominating behavior that is used to influence somebody's thoughts, feelings, or actions. In my example, 15 text messages over the course of 2 hours is definitely dominating with an intent to control my behavior, an intent to get me to respond, and he was using his trauma and his triggers to justify engaging in that behavior. Multiple people said you could just turn your ringer on. I eventually did, but the behavior didn't stop. Some of the other pushback I got was, I'm not trying to control, I'm just trying to be heard. So in other words, you're trying to get somebody to listen to you. They are choosing to not respond, but you have decided that your need to be heard is more important than their freedom of choice. If you believe that you are entitled to emotional labor from your partner, then you won't view it that way. You won't see it as an infringement on autonomy. And this is why I say it's belief systems that drive abusive behavior. My trauma, my triggers, my feelings are more important than your right to choose what's best for you. We are making our feelings the responsibility of somebody else to manage. Entitlement to emotional labor. But nobody is responsible to manage my feelings but me. My feelings are my biochemical response to what I'm experiencing based on the stories that I'm attaching to it. All of that is happening within inside of me. The feeling is a communication of something within me that I need to heal. That other person's behavior is just simply highlighting that communication for you. So if someone is triggering your anxious attachment, it means you're being called to heal your anxious attachment. And part of healing it is learning to self-soothe so you can get clear-headed enough to be able to determine if the person triggering you is healthy for you or not, instead of trying to change their behavior by texting them nonstop. Someone else suggested that this falls under reactive abuse, but this is misinformation too, because reactive abuse is what the abuser does. Victims don't engage in reactive abuse. Now victims react to abuse. If your abuser is giving you the silent treatment, the intent behind your text after text, it remains the same, to exert control over the situation because you don't feel in control. When I think about the times that I reacted to abuse, when I yelled back or I name called back or I slammed a door, I felt so freaking terrible after because it was so out of my character. If this video triggers you, I am genuinely asking you to reflect here. Do you feel bad after engaging in this behavior? Most people don't because they justify it. Well, if my narc didn't give me the silent treatment, I wouldn't have behaved that way. If they didn't make me angry or trigger my trauma, I wouldn't have behaved that way. Well, now we're venturing into this. Minimizing, denying, and blaming. I'm not equating anyone to an abuser. I'm calling out behavior. By saying these things, we are not taking ownership of our behavior, which is exactly what the abuser does. The abuser finds things to blame and justify their actions. This is not victim blaming. There is absolutely no shame or judgment here. I have been in this position. I have engaged in these behaviors. I realized they were wrong, so I unpacked the intent behind the excessive texting. In every scenario, whether it's friends or partners or family, and the intent always came back to entitlement to attention and entitlement to emotional labor. Once I pieced that together, I forgave myself because I was operating from a wounded place, but I took accountability by learning to self-soothe, by changing my behavior, and by choosing people who don't trigger that side of me. Truthfully, it wasn't until I was on the receiving end of this behavior that I realized how abusive it was.